Adding another general to his administration, the president-elect expected to choose retired General John Kelly to lead the Department of Homeland Security. This is coming on the heels of Trump's formal announcement of his intention to nominate retired General James Mattis as Secretary of Defense. Here now is David Sears. He is retired U.S. Navy SEAL. Let me ask you about General Kelly first. He oversaw operations at Guantanamo Bay, and he very strongly disagreed with President Obama's goal of closing the base. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that he's very aware of what's going on with Guantanamo Bay, and he's tracking on it, and he sees the recidivism rate. What are we at, 30% coming out of NCTC, or the DNI says? Yeah. The Director of National Intelligence, they're admitting that. General Kelly knows these facts, and that's why he's sternly against it.
General Kelly's son also died in Afghanistan. He stepped on a mine leading a platoon, and Donald Trump has said that in a lot of ways, you know, it's meaningful to have someone involved who understands the very high personal price of engaging in these battles. What are your thoughts on that?
That is absolutely true, and I think that's also a comfort to Americans around the world. These generals aren't warmongers or hawks. Rather, to the contrary, they've seen war. They have fired their weapons in combat. They've lost family members. They've lost platoon members. They've lost men under their command. They know the harshness and the brutality of war, and they don't want to engage in it any more than they have to.
Yeah. You know, there has been criticism of having so many generals up front, and of course General Mattis himself has to get a waiver or dispensation in order to assume the post that he's been nominated for. Is there anything to that? I mean, what do you say to those critics?
Right. I'm a little bit in awe of when being a veteran has become a black mark on your CV or your resume going forward. This isn't... What's the right time? It used to be 10 years that you had to wait to become Secretary of Defense. Then it was moved to 7 years. Is it 3 years? Is there some magical transformation that happens? Now, interestingly enough, General Mattis could have run for president, become president, commander-in-chief of all.
That's true. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. The U.S., meanwhile, on high alert. I'm sure you heard this. The country facing its biggest terror threat since September 11th. This is according to a new report from the House Homeland Security Committee. David, you know, the quote actually was, we face a deadlier threat, not only because our enemies have gotten savvier, but because we took the pressure off them. For 8 years, the Obama administration reluctantly played global whack-a-mole with terrorists rather than leaning into the fight with decisive leadership. How far behind are we now, and how dangerous is it?
There's two parts to this. We're definitely behind in terms of we went just at a tactical piece. So, as they said, whack-a-mole. They were hitting individuals, but there was no grander strategy to tie everything together. No end state in mind. So, yes, we are behind the power curve. Tactically, in Iraq, we are, the latest estimates, 55% of their territory gone. This is actually going to move them to start taking different tactics, ISIS will, and start expanding into Europe and the United States. So it is a dangerous scenario, and we are behind the power curve.
David Sears, thank you. Great to see you.
Thanks, Melissa.